The first game of the post-Matt Eberflus era for the Chicago Bears begins against San Francisco 49ers on the road at 3:25 p.m. Central. Can the Bears get a win for the first time in 6 games? Watch this video to hear my thoughts. What's going on, guys? I'm back with another Chicago Bears pregame prediction video, which I'll be doing before every single Bears game this year, and it finally happened. We finally fired Matt Eberflus. Thomas Brown will be taking over as head coach of this team, and the energy around this team is a lot different right now than it was last week. The players seem truly bought in on Thomas Brown. They're responding well to his energy, and Thomas Brown is just bringing a culture of accountability that didn't really exist with Matt Eberflus. Okay, in his press conference, his opening press conference, one of the first things he talked about was accountability, holding himself accountable as the interim head coach. He even talked about how, some of the late game mistakes that were made under Eberflus, the fans should be blaming him for that as well. That's how much accountability he took, and that's why the players seem to love playing for him. They love his energy, they love his coaching style, and it just seemed like no player really loved playing for Eberflus anymore. Jaquan Brisker, the second that Eberflus got fired, he tweeted, "God doesn't make any mistakes." Jalen Johnson was super happy afterwards as well. DJ Moore did not defend Matt Eberflus whatsoever. So some of the biggest stars on this team, they are pretty happy that Eberflus is no longer here because he was costing them wins as the head football coach of this team, just making stupid decision after stupid decisions. So obviously, guys, I'm not stupid though. Like, even with this new energy, I don't expect the Bears to go 5-0 and make a crazy playoff run. The playoffs are basically out of the picture at this point, okay? Unless, again, we win every single game, but that's going to be very tough to do with the schedule we have coming up, okay? It's games against pretty good teams basically every single week, except for this week, which is crazy saying that, but the 49ers are not really a good football team this year, okay? They're a very beatable football team this year, so I think it's a perfect game for Thomas Brown to take over as head coach, because this is a game the Bears could win, okay, with how good they have been playing as of late. The fact that we just have not been finishing those games, doesn't take away from the fact that the Bears were very competitive against 3 of the best teams in football. So if Caleb continues, growing as a quarterback, if Thomas Brown can keep up the play calling, even being the head coach of this team, the Bears definitely have a chance to win this game. So, as a Bears fan, I'm pretty excited for this game because I just want to see what Thomas Brown has and, if he can potentially maybe even be the Bears head coach long term, okay? If he does a good job in these next 5 games, there's definitely a chance he could be the permanent head coach of this team. It would be so nice for Caleb to not have to learn a brand new offensive system, a brand new play caller, a brand new head coach. It would have been his 3rd head coach in less than 2 years. So, ideally, Thomas Brown does a very good job with the Bears. The play calling is still very good. The decision making is good. The Bears win, I don't know, maybe 3 games. That would be pretty nice. Beat the Packers in Lambeau. If he does that, he will have a very good chance to remain the head coach of this team long term. So I'm definitely rooting for that possibility, but we'll see what he has. And, talking about the other team we're playing, as I mentioned, the 49ers have not been a good team this year. They had Super Bowl expectations, but injuries have kind of ravaged their roster, and Christian McCaffrey got injured in the last game. He's going to be out for some time. Brandon Ayuk obviously is out for the season. Trent Williams has been dealing with injuries too, and he also lost his one of his kids just passed away, so prayers out to him. That's horrible, but he's not going to be playing potentially, and there's just a lot of guys in this team that are injured. I mean, Nick Bosa could be missing this game. I'm recording this video on Monday, so too early to tell, but he could potentially be gone. Greenlaw's out. Hufanga is on injured reserve. There's just, if I'm looking at the roster right now, half of the roster is on IR right now. So as good of a coach as Kyle Shanahan is, it's going to be tough for him to win games with what's been happening to his roster this year. But talking more about the 49ers, talking about their offense, first of all, they rank number 15 in points scored per game, number 7 in yards gained per game, number 9 passing attack, and number 7 run game. And, Brock Purdy has been dealing with some injuries. And if you look at his stat line, it's 2,707 passing yards, 13 passing touchdowns, 8 interceptions. So, not a crazy good stat line, I would say, but he's still, fairly good as a decision maker with the football in his hands. He doesn't have the craziest arm strength or anything, but if you get guys open for him in space, he's going to hit those open guys. So, it's going to be on the Bears to send more pressure his way than Eberflus would have. The last couple weeks, we've not been sending the right amount of pressure at these opposing quarterbacks. But if we do get the pressure on Purdy, it's going to be pretty hard for him to make plays in this one. He is relatively mobile. He can run, decent amount, but he's, no Justin Fields, no Lamar Jackson, obviously. So, with how many injuries are affecting this 49ers offense, like Jawan Jennings is their leading receiver at this point this year. And he's a good complementary piece, don't get me wrong, and very underrated. But I'm sure 49ers fans were expecting Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel to be the leading receiver at this point. George Kittle is still pretty decent. He's a solid, reliable tight end. But hopefully, being a Bears fan, he's going to take it easy on us. Obviously not, but, you can hope that he's not going to destroy us because, he's a very vocal fan of the Bears as well. So hopefully it takes it a little bit easy against his, childhood team. And one big thing, which I talked about earlier, again, is Christian McCaffrey being injured, but also their number 2 running back is injured as well. Jordan Mason is going to miss some time, so Isaac Guerrero is going to be the RB1 of this offense. And he's a guy that's very, very explosive, very, very athletic, very gifted athletically, but so far in the season, he has 246 rushing yards, so he hasn't really been used as a focal, RB1 on this offense. So curious to see if he can handle the load. Now, Kyle Shanahan usually can find a way to run the ball with basically anybody, so maybe he could still have a pretty good game, but he's certainly not Christian McCaffrey by any stretch. So, overall, this Niners offense with Kyle Shanahan is always going to be a threat to score points, but they just don't have the same juice that they had in prior years. Talking about the Niners defense, they rank number 25 in points allowed per game, number 6 in yards allowed per game, number 4 passing defense, number 15 run defense. And they've just been very bad in the red zone. They've been allowing a whole lot of points. I mean, in the red zone, they have not been able to really stop anybody. So when the Bears get to the red zone, there's a high chance that Caleb and the offense are going to come away with a touchdown. Now, their pass rush, their front 7 does have some pretty good names on it still. Fred Warner is one of the best linebackers, definitely the best linebacker in football. I mean, the plays this guy makes, and I know he's not been having as good of a season this year as he's had in prior years, but still a pretty phenomenal football player. I mean, this guy in coverage is very rangy. He can make very physical tackles, very good against the run. So Fred Warner is always a guy to watch out for on an opposing defense. And Nick Bosa, not sure if he plays, but if he does play, he has 7 sacks on the season, 10 tackles for loss, 17 quarterback hits. Superstar, obviously, on the D-line. And they also got Leonard Floyd, old Chicago Bear. Leonard Floyd is on the 49ers, too. He has 6.5 sacks on the season and 6 tackles for loss, and he's a very long, athletic guy with a big wingspan, and he can really get around the edge and get his hands on the quarterback. So Caleb is going to have to be careful to not hold the ball too long. Otherwise, Leonard Floyd or maybe Nick Bosa or somebody else is going to, get him down for a sack. So, definitely not holding on to the football too long is going to be a key point of emphasis for Caleb against this defense. Even though they have been struggling at times, they do have some level of talent on it, and secondary still has some guys that are playing pretty well too. So even though they're allowing a lot of points, it's still going to be a pretty tough challenge for Caleb and Thomas Brown, and hopefully they can keep their success going against this defense. But talking about the Chicago Bears, guys, talking about their offense, first of all, they rank number 23 in points scored per game, number 25 in yards gained per game, number 27 passing attack, number 23 run game. And obviously with Thomas Brown, guys, Caleb Williams has looked like a completely different quarterback. He looks much more confident, much more poised. He's having much better success in the fourth quarter. I mean, even before Thomas Brown came here, he was pretty good in the fourth quarter, but he's been on a roll in the fourth quarter in the past 3 games, okay, making big time plays for the Chicago Bears to tie or even win the game, but the rest of the team has unfortunately let him down. So I just want to keep on seeing, how this offense evolves with Caleb Williams, with Thomas Brown, if they can build some sort of chemistry together. It's only been 3 games, so I want to see what they can do against a weaker defense in the 49ers. Can they still, score a lot of points? Can they get into the red zone? Can they get out to better starts, though? That's been a key cause of concern. The Bears have not started out good basically any game, so I want to see if they can score a touchdown the first drive, or at least get some points in the first half. You don't have to be scoring 21 points in the first half, but you do have to score at least 10, at least 14, to give yourself a chance in the second half, so you don't have to make a massive comeback. So I want to see this offense get out to a better start. I also want to see us run the football a lot better, besides for Caleb, because Caleb has been the leading rusher for the past couple of games. Okay, DeAndre Swift has really not done much of anything besides for catching the ball. Now, he's been pretty good as a pass catcher, obviously, but in terms of just like the strict ground game, we have not been getting that much success this season. So I want to see DeAndre Swift, get a couple big runs through. I want to see us stick to the run game too. Lately it's been a lot of Caleb passing the football, which is fine. Okay, it's been working, but at some point you do have to also be able to run the football and establish some sort of a run game so you don't overwhelm Caleb Williams. Now, Keenan Allen has been having a good couple of games for the Chicago Bears. He's really like blossomed into being a pretty good player now for the Bears. He still has some faults. Obviously, he's not been perfect. He's struggled with some drops, some bad routes, but against the Lions, he was pretty good. Against the Vikings, he made some big-time catches. So I want to see if Keenan Allen can continue to be, a big part of this offense. But if not, Rome Odunze does have to be a big part of this offense. We already know DJ Moore is going to be a part of this offense no matter what. But, I really want to see us get Rome involved as well because this guy, consistently is making some big-time plays for the Bears. He's just not getting fed the ball enough, I feel like. But again, with so many weapons on this team, you do have to pick and choose who you throw the ball to. But hopefully Caleb can distribute the ball, efficiently and effectively like he has been doing the past 3 weeks. And talking about the Chicago Bears defense, they rank number 9 in points allowed per game, number 22 in yards allowed per game, number 12 passing defense, number 25 run defense. And the big story here is that Eric Washington is taking over as play caller on this defense. So I want to see what the differences are going to be between him and Eberflus because, obviously they operate in the same scheme, but Eric Washington, I want to see if he gets a little bit more aggressive because his defense has really lacked aggression during the whole Eberflus era. They were a bend but don't break defense, which is fine to some extent, but we saw how frustrating that was at other times too. Like on 3rd and 15, on 2nd and 20, sometimes we were allowing these big yards to be converted, these big downs to be converted, which is super annoying, especially against the Vikings in overtime a couple weeks ago. So I want to see like what type of aggression he's going to bring. Are we going to blitz more? Is it going to be different types of coverages? Are we going to play more man-to-man maybe in certain situations? Obviously it's going to remain a Tampa 2 defense for the most part, but I want to see what energy he brings to this defense. And I think that the guys in the defense are going to really appreciate playing for a new guy in Eric Washington because they really could not stand Eberflus in the past couple weeks. I mean, Jaquan Brisker, even though he's not playing in this one, he did not like Eberflus whatsoever, clearly. Jalen Johnson did not like Eberflus. I'm sure some of the other guys on defense that have not spoken as much, they've also felt the same way. So I think that just a new energy from having a new guy in here maybe could propel the defense to being pretty good again. I mean, we have a lot of talent on this defense, so it could be a top 10, top 15 defense for the rest of the season if they can get back on track. But obviously, as of late, they have not had the same dominance they had earlier this season. But that's the Bears defense. Talking about my prediction for this game now, who do I have win this matchup? And guys, I have the Chicago Bears going into San Francisco. And for the first time in almost 2 months, beating the 49ers by a score of 27-24. Yes, I'm being pretty optimistic for the Bears for this game because, guys, almost every single time, okay, no matter how bad the team is, whenever you fire your head coach, that team almost always wins the following week. I mean, there's always new energy from the interim coach, which the players really feed on. And guys, you can look across the league. Like the Saints had this happen last year. The Raiders had this happen with Antonio Pierce. And, obviously you don't know if the interim coach is good or not after the first game, but there's always a lot of energy after the firing of your head coach. So that's part of the reason why I think the Bears are going to win this one. And they've already had some experience now working with Thomas Brown. I mean, Thomas Brown's been calling the plays for the offense for the last 3 weeks, and the Bears have been very competitive against good teams, good defenses with Thomas Brown. So against a pretty mediocre to poor defense with the 49ers, I think we could score a good amount of points against this defense. And with all the injuries the Niners have, the Bears have a very good shot to win this one. They're going to be desperate. They're going to be hungry, a lot hungrier than the 49ers probably are going to be entering this one. So that's why I think the Bears win, and Thomas Brown gets a victory in his debut being head coach of this team. Now, as for my offense MVP of this game, I got to go with Caleb Williams, man. I mean, this guy's been having a fantastic last month, and I think against a defense that could be pretty susceptible in the red zone, he gets 2 passing touchdowns, 275 passing yards, and I'll go with 1 INT. Caleb has not thrown an interception in a very long time. Eventually, he's probably going to throw one, or maybe just by me predicting this every week, I'm going to reverse jinx it, and he's never going to throw an interception ever again because it's been a long-ass time since Caleb threw a pick. But yeah, I'll pick 1 interception and then 2 touchdowns, 275 passing yards. As for my defense MVP, let me go with Jalen Johnson. He was so happy that Eberflus was fired. He was part of the reason why Flus was fired. He went crazy in the locker room, so I think he has a very good debut game with this new head coach. Maybe gets a pick and plays good coverage down the field. But leave your comments down below, guys. What do you guys think is going to happen in this game? I'm so excited for this matchup, even though the Bears had no chance really of making the playoffs. Firing Eberflus did make me excited for the rest of the season because now I can comfortably root for wins for this team for the rest of the season. I don't have to worry about the Bears keeping a pathetic, horrible coach in Matt Eberflus any longer. Leave your comments down below, guys. As always, bear down.